Welcome to episode 1 of the Tri-State Hockey Podcast presented by Novig. As always, I'm your host, Jonny Lazarus, joined by my good friends, longtime NHL reporter Arthur Staple and Stanley Cup champion Mike Rupp. Fellas, feels like it's been a long time since we've talked because, well, a lot's happened, at least for one of our teams. The Rangers released another letter, which we will get into. It feels like that's already old, but we haven't talked about it since it happened on Friday afternoon, right after we recorded. It would have been so convenient had that letter dropped Thursday for our episode on Friday. But the Devils with another big win last night in Calgary, a game they probably should have ran away with, but weren't able to. And the Islanders squeaked one out in and they have one game left on their road trip. So we will start Rangers today just because we haven't talked about the news with the letter. I'll save my thoughts, I guess. I'll kick it over to you first, Arthur, and hear what you had to make of the letter 2.0.
Yeah, it was interesting, the timing, unfortunate for us since we had just been talking about the Rangers and we raised, I want to say that on the Tri-State Hockey Pod, we raised the right white flag for the Rangers before Chris Drury officially raised it a few hours later. So I give us credit as well. But, I think what was said in that letter was probably pretty obvious to anybody in and around the league. Chris Drury's, I think everybody around the league knew that Artemi Panarin wasn't signing an extension there, that he was probably going to get moved, but to make it sort of, put the stamp on it, make it official, seemed momentous in some way. It sounded like there was some finality to the conversations that Drury had with Panarin, with some of the other leaders on the team, guys, with no move or no trade clauses, asking whether or not they want to be part of it. I kind of feel like we'll get into that a little bit more, whether it pertains to Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox, Vincent Trocheck, who's got a partial no trade protection. So, I think now it just feels like it's all on the table, that the things that we've been hearing and that other people around the league, the insiders have been hearing about who's been shopped, who's not being shopped, whatever. Now it's open season. It's everybody call on everybody. You evaluate these things. I think for Chris Drury, similar in a way to the group GM chat text that he sent out last season in November, kind of throwing the doors open again, specifically for Chris Kreider and Jacob Trouba. And both of those guys ended up being moved within a year. Now, you look at Panarin, obviously, as the headliner. You look at guys like Braden Schneider. You look at Vincent Trocheck. You look at maybe even Alexis Lafreniere if they can get something for him. There's a lot more, I think, options on the table, maybe things that people hadn't been thinking about that now teams might come out of the woodwork and say, well, tell me about this guy. Tell me about that guy. Maybe even Jonathan Quick, who's going to play in LA tonight, maybe for the last time in his NHL career. Maybe he says, okay, I want to go try to win a cup like we were talking about last time. So, seemingly kind of putting to paper, putting out digitally what we all already knew, but it feels a little different when it comes in that sort of official way from the team.
Rupper, what were your thoughts? Well, actually, if I may quickly, just based on what Arthur just finished with, I feel like the fan bases, Devils and Rangers, feel like almost opposite, where, I'm a Rangers fan sitting here saying, wow, actually said what he had to say in front of a microphone and took questions from the media like Fitz did. But for Devils fans, it feels like Chris Drury said more in that letter than what Fitz did to the media. So it's kind of like, a catch-22 in that sense. But Rupper, what did you make of the letter?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, like you guys both said last show, where it's the proper move. I mean, the Rangers don't need us to tell them that's a proper move. Like they've come to the realization, whatever time period that happened, that this is the right move for the team, and it is. I guess the problem that maybe I have in it is, first of all, I don't know how doing that really helps your leverage, if you have any, with some of these players, like an Artemi Panarin situation. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that is the best line of action as far as moving him, and when teams know you have to move them, and some of these other guys as well. So yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that, but then secondly, the first letter was unique. We don't usually see like letters like this, I feel like, and we always joked around about the last few years about when's the next letter coming out, but that one was about a rebuild. This one is phrased a retool. And I don't know if you need a letter for a retool. Isn't that just like the price of business every year? You're always trying to kind of
Yeah.
change some
Yeah.
things around. But then I also was talking to a few people, and we got in conversation, and it came up like kind of already did a retool with this group very recently. I mean, traded Kako, you traded Phil Pedal, Keandre Miller, Chris Kreider, Trouba. You got JT Miller, you got Will Borgen, you got Gavrikov in return. You got a new coach. Like it's like a retool of a retool. And I think for me, is like if you're sitting there as a fan, that if you feel like I don't know, like he told you some stuff there, the direction of this team, but it's kind of like, well, what the hell have the last couple of years been? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of been that. So I would be a little hesitant for a fan to be like, oh, all right, here we go. But in the other part too, as a fan, I'd be frustrated that retooling and those things that he said, where we want to get younger, want to get prospects, you want to have this. As far as the attributes of these young players, this team has not drafted and developed. And so until something changes in that process, like why should fans feel comfortable that it is the right thing to happen and it's what's necessary? But who's to think and who feel good about the people that are in place to carry it out? They simply have not developed players and drafted well. I mean, that's a fact when you look at the Rangers drafting over the last however long. So I don't know. It's the right thing. I just, as a fan, I'd be kind of wondering what we've been doing the last couple seasons.
That's what I said originally after the letter was released. I was like, it feels late and just unnecessary because we've already been, like you said, Repper, we've already been doing this. Like, do you need to just announce officially that this is, what's already happened? I guess the one bright spot is that like now, I said it last night. I don't feel any emotion after a game they lose. Like this season is totally a far gone conclusion. It's done. It's over. Like now that's the one thing that's set in stone from that letter, right? Like they're not going to push this year to make the playoffs, which I think we were kind of left questioning over the past couple weeks is like, if they can stay afloat without Fox and Shesterkin, maybe after the Olympic break, like they make some trades and still try to push for the playoffs and do something. But now we know that that's not the plan of action. So at least you can not take this season so deep in emotion when they lose a game that they probably should have won, because maybe it's better for them to lose at this point now than it is to win games so they can get a better draft pick. But then to the point that you just made, what the hell are they going to do with that draft pick? What's that draft pick going to become? And this feeling of being stuck hasn't changed. It's the Rangers are stuck right now until, people go and people come in and God knows who's going to come in. Like that's one of the bigger conversations I want to have today is Artemi Panarin. And I think I kind of mentioned it on the show last. I was texting with a guy in the NHL, a friend of mine, one of the better players in the NHL, and he was saying, like, if Panarin goes, what skill do they have left? He's the only skill they really got, or the only high-end skill they got. So what does that do to a Lafreniere, a Gabe Perreault? What happens then with the young prospects that they actually want to see grow and develop and, become those top-end guys if they have no one around them to play with? I don't want to repeat myself, but, with the value of Panarin being now out there that they don't plan on re-signing him, what do you expect to get in return? Like other teams are now saying to themselves, "Oh, we know they're not going to sign him, so we don't have to give them a Quinn Hughes return. They don't plan on keeping him, so they're going to have to budge at some point if they want to get something, at least something in return." No, like the Rangers' cards are fully shown right now.
That's why for me, I think it has to be for Panarin. He has the no move. We know that. So it has to be something he's open to and okay with and has desire to be. But also that's why I think it's going to have an element of an extension. And like we just saw Vegas do it with Rasmus Andersson. There's no extension in place. I just think that they're very confident because if you look at the track record of guys they brought there that sign and re-sign shortly thereafter, it's pretty good. Like they're confident in like their culture they have there. They're winning and all that good stuff. And it's Vegas, that they will get people to sign there. Now, they got a really good return for Rasmus Andersson, like Calgary did, I should say. I thought it was fantastic, considering he doesn't have an extension in place. I mean, at the end of the day, like he could walk. And that was so if you're looking as a Ranger fan, you're like, well, if Rasmus Andersson's fetching that type of return, man, Panarin's got to be even more. I don't know. I don't know about that. And I'm not too sure about making everybody publicly know and walking yourself to this point with Artemi Panarin that if if you're even going to get what they got for Rasmus Anderson. And that's, again, without an extension play. So only way I think the Rangers can maximize that is if there is a long-term extension to whatever team he gets traded to.
I'll take the counter argument to that, Rupper. I disagree on that one because I think the power that Chris Drury has is being able to retain 50% of his deal. So you knock it down to whatever, a 5.8 cap hit, which I think a lot of teams can absorb. And you've widened the pool of teams. You've put having that conversation with Artemi Panarin saying we're not extending you is not a shot. It's not a ploy. It's Chris Drury saying this is the situation. If you want to block a trade to wherever, if you want to say I only want to go to these 2 or 3 teams, that's your prerogative. But you could go to a lot of different places if you think about it. Or I just think it's not a game of chicken necessarily, but I think if Panarin really values what he's going to do beyond this season, and we know that he wants to keep playing and he wants to extend at a high number wherever he goes. He probably wanted to stay in New York, but that's not going to happen. I think he's got to prove that he can be a primetime performer. The biggest knock on him in his incredible run as a Ranger is that he hasn't always been there in the playoffs. So now if he wants to go somewhere and win, and he says, I only want to go to the Avs, or I only want to go to the Stars, or I want to go to, Florida. You're going to have to widen that pool a little bit if you're him because of the situation. I think the Rangers are sort of saying like, yeah, you're not going to be our responsibility after the trade deadline or after we make this deal, and certainly not on July 1. That's up to you. And you got to prove that you're worth 4 times 11 or 3 times 12 or whatever it's going to be. So I don't mind this, this idea that they might have lost some leverage here. I think it was obvious again, with what had come out, even things that we had heard, among those 3 on this show, that the offer wasn't good enough before the season started. And that, to me, even if that's a starting point offer from the Rangers, it was way low and maybe even a little bit insulting to Panarin's camp. So you already knew that they were on shaky footing as far as the future goes, no matter what was happening with the Rangers. So I feel like kind of cutting the cord right now and declaring your intentions, not the worst move in the world, and the ability to retain 50% to knock that cap hit down a lot, to sort of include a lot more teams, or, you only need 2 teams to give you a bidding war to boost up the cost for a guy like, to get more assets for a guy like Panarin. So I feel like I don't mind what Chris Drury did there, because I think everybody knew that he was moving on anyway before the trade deadline comes.
But I guess, sorry, yeah, go.
No, I just wanted, the one thing while you're talking, and great points there, because there's a couple different sides of it that you could look at it. And here's the one, though, that, remember, even dating back last season, where we've been talking about it for a long time, that the summer of 26, like that was the big summer. And we've talked about how everybody is pretty much re-signed for their respective teams, yada, yada, yada. That's been, we joke around about what's trade deadline show going to look like, because a lot of these things are done with the big name players. Now, with all that being said, I think just to look at it from a different set of lenses, Panarin camp, he's the only one now. Like Alex Tuck, like you know what I mean? Like he's like Artemi Panarin's the only one now. He doesn't have any comps. The comps that he did have are all signed with their respective clubs. I mean, what was it? If you go back, there was Eichel, there was Adrian Kempe, there was like, what were some of these other ones that were,
McDavid was coming up, I think.
Yeah, it feels like all these have been so long ago. So I'm curious, and I don't know the answer to this. I'm curious if Artemi wants to go to a team, one of the teams he wants, and sign an extension there, or if he's willing to go to a team for a couple months on a playoff run. Not every player has that appetite. So he might be like, I'll stay in New York and then I'll go to free agency. And it's kind of catching lightning in the bottle, I think, for them, because you talk about widening the teams. He's the only guy now. He's the only high-end profile forward out there. So it's intriguing. I can't wait to see how all this plays out. It's just the beginning right now. Like, you know what I mean? It might be some posturing happen. It might get nasty. You never know how these things play out. It might be perfect. It might be very well done and orchestrated where they come to an agreement on something. But I'm not too sure.
I just feel like no matter what, though, the return is underwhelming. And that's, I think, the whole point that I really wanted to get across, just because with the Rangers cards being on the table, like we said, they have zero leverage. Panarin and the other teams have all of it. So, like, you're not getting what Artemi Panarin gave the Rangers over the last 7 seasons. The Rangers are not getting in this trade. It's just, and that's
No,
the harsh
But hey,
reality.
but I
Yeah.
would say the same thing. Here's the same thing, and maybe this is where there's a little bit more leverage because Quinn Hughes had another year. But Quinn, that situation had Vancouver in a really bad spot
Mhm.
where you would think that Vancouver had no leverage. They did pretty well on their return. So sometimes I know I'm talking kind of both sides of the coin here. I'm just trying to look at it from
Yeah.
different ways. Where like Vancouver did pretty well in that. Now I think what helped them is that Quinn is still under contract for another year. But yeah, it's funny how some of these things shake out where you see the cost or the price. I mean, you go back to, I mean, at the time, I would argue at the time, the Matthew Tkachuk deal to the Florida Panthers, totally different situation. But Calgary had no leverage in that situation. They got a pretty good pull in return. They got a guy who had 115 points that season in Jonathan Huberdeau. They get Mackenzie Weegar, who's a top 4 defenseman. So it's funny because I feel like the Rangers don't have leverage here, but we have had seen some teams that come out on top. So yeah, it's going to be intriguing.
The leverage for sure is whoever gets him is getting the best guy available, like Rupper was saying. So I think if you're Dallas or you're Colorado, just to name two, and you say Artemi Panarin at 5.8 for the rest of the season is the guy that we believe will put us over the top to win a Stanley Cup, you'll give up what you need to give up. You know, Colorado, I think with Brock Nelson, you look at that deal last year, you know, there were some situations, but Brock Nelson turned down a deal to Winnipeg. He didn't want to go there even for the short term. So he accepted a deal to Colorado. Lou Lamoriello put a line in the said, we're only doing this deal if we get a first and a prospect that we like. They got what they wanted, and it really wasn't a huge bidding war either for that situation. So I think we've seen GMs be able to finesse their way out of these situations because you are sending the guy that people want. And I think that's ultimately what's going to prove it. I'll pivot now and I'll ask you, Johnny and Rupper, when you put this letter out, you're inviting all kinds of offers for everybody on your roster, which is pretty clear. How far do you go though? Like, to me, when you put a letter out, you say in that letter, some of players that you fans really love are going to be gone. And then you end up talking, you know, you ask Mika Zibanejad if he's willing to waive, and he says, no, I want to stay. And you ask JT Miller if he's willing to waive. He's I mean, different case. He says, no, I want to stay. You go to Adam Fox and Igor Shesterkin and Vlad Gavrikov, these guys that have no move clauses. They all say they want to stay. And Vincent Trocheck, who's got a no trade and doesn't have all the leverage, he says he wants to stay. And Braden Schneider, who's a coming up RFA, he wants to stay. So if you put a letter out and all you do is trade the guys that are pending UFAs and Panarin and Carson Soucy and maybe Jonathan Quick if he wants to go somewhere, what the hell did you do the letter for? Because that's what every team that's at the bottom of the standings does. So my question is to you guys, how far do you push it? Do you insist that you get, because to me, the guys that you will get the best returns for are Braden Schneider and Vincent Trocheck. Because one is a young defenseman, young right shot defenseman, and one is a center who's cost controlled for the next couple of years, who can still play at a top 6 level and is a good leader. So do you, by putting this letter out, are you giving yourself a hard deadline of the trade deadline to make sure you make these moves? Because that's a little bit more pressure, I think, even than the Panarin situation.
Rep, I'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, no, it's a great question for how far. Like, I don't know what kind of communication has had already as far as management and the players up to this point, or maybe some of it's after the season. Like, I don't know. I know you got a deadline with the trade deadline coming up here, but I think there's conversation you have with everybody. Like, this is the path we're taking. What do you signed up for this? Where are we at now? And see if everybody wants to kind of sign on again, or just get some sort of a temperature of where everybody's at. Because you could sit there and say, I mean, there's nothing wrong with going to an Adam Fox and saying, hey, listen, like, we said we're going to be listening on players. We are going to get calls about you. So we don't, you could even say, we don't want to trade you. We don't want to do whatever, but like, we want to know where you're at. And do we want some of these teams to come back to you? And that's maybe a way to kind of massage and have some options here. Braden Schneider is the one that's really interesting because he's got no trade protection. So that's the one that I think absolutely you're probably you're trying to move because he'll get a great return, I would assume. But yeah, I don't know where you put the end to it because then that gets into whatever your whatever your beliefs are, where this team is at and where they're going. Like I'm a firm believer that I don't know how long this is going to take. I mean, is it going to be the Washington Capitals turned it around pretty quick, but they also had players coming from within.
Yeah.
Rangers don't.
Yeah.
They've been very shrewd in some of their moves that they've made. They've taken on some reclamation projects and they've worked. They've hit on those. So that's a risk you're taking and maybe some other players that are out there. But at the same rate, like, where's Igor at all this? Are we wasting the best prime years of Igor? And I would never want to trade him ever. But also, what's Igor think and feel at this time? So I guess to answer it long-winded way, Arthur, I'd say it's, you don't stop anywhere. You have those conversations. You just find out where everybody's at. If you get some answers that are like, nope, I don't want to move, I'm not waving for anybody, at least all right, that's it. We're moving forward. But if you get a little ho-hum, like maybe, like, well, where do you think we're going to be at in a year's time, 2 years' time? Like, I think you got to kick the tires on all those things.
And are you trying to get guys out? Like, goal must be to get guys to want to wave. No, like, don't you want it to change?
It's been their goal since last year, right?
So I think it's almost like, I don't know if the Rangers go to the extent of, what the Devils did was scratching Dougie Hamilton to try to, make it hard on him to want to stay. Like, I don't see the Rangers scratching guys like Mika or, I mean, obviously they're not going to scratch JT and whatnot. Like, I feel like the Rangers are happy to hold on to those guys, honestly, those two. But if they fail to move Trocheck and Schneider at the deadline, then this whole thing is totally pointless. Panarin obviously is in that conversation as well. But like you said, Arthur, I think the most movable and most attractive contracts to the other 31 teams are Trocheck's and Schneider. I heard the Chicklets guys talking about it on their show today. I just saw the clip. But, I agree with it. I think Trocheck is actually more attractive than Panarin just because you have him for years and he plays down the middle, and Trocheck's a perfect third line center for a cup contending team. Like, who wouldn't want that? Where Panarin, obviously you're going to have to sign the guy to north of 12 million, I would think, for a minimum of 3 years. And yeah, he's a good, second or third piece up front. He's not a number one guy. I think Panarin has shown us, and again, like, I love Artemi Panarin, but he's shown us he's not a forward that leads a team to the Stanley Cup. It's just not who he is. He hasn't done it. He hasn't shown it. And I think it's fair to say that he's not that. But if you put him around like a Mikko Rantanen, if you put him next to Nathan McKinnon, if you put him with Kirill Kaprizov, yeah, he's fucking dangerous next to those guys. And he's dangerous already as it is, but even more so next to one of those guys. So if you're those three teams, you should be all in on getting Artemi Panarin for this year because those three are pretty much on even level playing field. And, if you can have a chance to get the edge over one of the other, then you have to go try to find a way to do it. But even like, I think a team that's interesting is Detroit, right? Like, they've kind of stayed put over the past couple of years. Like, Marco Kasper is an interesting prospect to me that could be, in a return for a guy like Panarin or something with the Red Wings. I was just kind of looking it up while you guys were talking. Like, the thing I think we can find is maybe that like Claude Giroux trade to Florida, where the Flyers got like an Owen Tippett type of player from that deal. I think that's kind of where we stand with the Panarin deal. But yeah, to the original question from Arthur, it's a massive failure to me if Trocheck and Schneider aren't both gone because they can bring value, I would think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Trocheck for sure. I think once you make that declaration, it's not just about the obvious guys. It's about the guys that you wouldn't normally trade under any other circumstances. But now circumstances are so special, so egregious that you put out this letter to say to tell the world we're the hanky's out, we're done, and we need to make major changes. So if you're making major changes, you would think a guy like that who could bring back a pretty big haul, and it's going to leave a hole. There's not a lot of number two centers that just sort of pop up anywhere around the league. And to Rupper's point, the letter is not. It's not an answer. It's the acknowledgement.
I think it's a cop out. I think it's
not a solution. it's an acknowledgement. It's not a solution. You gotta now the work begins for everybody in that front office, whether it's Chris Drury or Ryan Clough, Garth Joy, their head of pro scouting, John Lilly, their head of amateur scouting, all their development guys, Tanner Glass, Jed Ortmeyer. Everybody's got to raise their game because the last few years of this group, I mean, the drafting wise, you've got Brennan Othman, who finally got off the schneid and got his first NHL goal and whatever this is, year 3 playing in the pros. And, you've got some other guys that have been bouncing up and down. You haven't seen anybody outside of Will Cooley, who was drafted by the previous administration. You haven't seen anybody pop yet among that youthful group. Schneider did for a little while, but again, that's a Jeff Gorton draft pick. So this is you put that note on the bulletin board, and that it should be in everybody's office in the Rangers front office saying like, yeah, we got to get, as bad as our team has been, that we need them to get 200% better. We all got to get 200% better, or else this is just whatever they do, it's not going to work.
Johnny,
any final thoughts?
I wouldn't put the deadline on the trade deadline, though. They don't have to move them before the trade deadline. Could be something in the summer at the draft. It could be, we always talk about that every year where there's, for those two players in particular, not Panarin. Panarin needs to be done. But like we always talk about the draft where there's more teams that are in a position or at the end of the season with their cap in their decision making where they can be open to it. So if the Rangers don't get the deal they want for a Braden Schneider and a Vinny Trocheck, like that may have to wait till the summer.
But wouldn't you say Schneider I could maybe agree with, but Trocheck, you think his value is getting higher than right now?
I mean, I don't think it's going to go anywhere.
Well, but you have to think
go anywhere.
The rest of the season is probably going to be miserable. Like Trocheck
got the
right
Olympics,
now, the deadline, prior to the Olympics.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the highest it's going to get. If you're looking for, or especially at the deadline time when teams are really pushing their chips in playoff run versus in the summer when you don't know what your team necessarily looks like until they start playing. I think Trocheck, right? I think, and again, I love Vinny. I don't want to see him go, but I think he has to be out the door if you're really trying to quote unquote retool.
I'm with you, Johnny, on that one. I think you give the shorter window, the cap's not gone up yet. Teams are pushing all in. There's no centers available on the trade market. If you're comparing, if you're a team that needs a center, like let's say you're Carolina or Tampa or whatever, and if they can afford him, you're saying all right, so we could trade for Vinny Trocheck or we could trade for Braden Shen. I'm taking Vinny Trocheck 10 times out of 10 there. So I think I agree that if you strike now, you'll get a better return, and you're putting other teams under the gun to make a decision like that, as opposed to the summer, which can drag on and drag on and drag on. And Chris Drury has the lesson from last summer that if you're a team that wants to make major changes, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes, with the Jacob Trouba situation, they weren't able to do what they needed to do ahead of free agency to make the changes that he wanted to make. So I would push for it now because you put teams under the gun a little bit more.
All right, let's go into the two other teams. Spent a lot of time on the Rangers. I think now we're going to shift into the Devils. They've won 3 in a row. Yes,
3 or 4.
3 or 4. Okay, sorry,
yeah.
3 or 4. They won last night in Calgary, and we have a voicemail from a Devils fan, I believe. Do we want to start off with that, or Rupper? Did you want to talk about this Lenni Mähärä to kick things off? Because I don't know anything about him, to be fully transparent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of learning about him too. He's been really good down in Utica. So you can only imagine this season when the Devils really kind of struggle to score goals, and with some of the injuries they've had, I think there's been a lot of calling for, hey, let's bring the kid up, see what he's got, give him a couple games here. I didn't love it as a player, but I love when you're patient with these players. You got to dominate and find ways to just day in, day out dominate at the lower level before you come up. And they've kind of waited along. He dressed in warm-ups against Carolina the other night, took warm-ups, did not play in the game. Sheldon Keefe said he's coming with us on the road trip and he will be making his debut here at some point. That happened in Calgary. He was awesome. He looked fantastic. I thought he was all over the ice in a lot of different ways. I thought it was a really first showing, and got some numbers here that I came across from, I don't know how to say his name, JP Gambatisi. I don't know. I follow him. He does a great job with some analytics covering the Devils, and he posted this the other night. And again, this is all we've talked about this. All different gathering of analytics are a little bit different on each site, but this gives you the picture of he was really good when he was out there, or at least the line was. So shot attempts while he's on the ice was 15-9 favored the Devils. Shots on goal were 11-5 in favor of the Devils. Scoring chances 9-0, high danger chances 4-0. His expected goals was 88%. So like that with that line, so it was good. He had some really good looks too. We had a couple shots early on. So yeah, I think it was a great first game, and that's what you look at from a young player coming in. You try to buy yourself game two. I think he bought himself game two. So we'll see where it goes from here.
I need to follow this guy on Twitter. He's on Twitter. How do you spell it?
He does a great
I like
job.
those stats. Yeah, JP.
Yeah, he does a great job. I talked to him last week. He did an article. He writes some articles and stuff. And yeah, he's just he's got a bright mind. I like some of his takes he has, and he just kind of gives little cards like that during the games, and it gives you a nice little snapshot on how some of the players are playing.
I'm gonna need you to send his Twitter profile in our group chat. I want to give him a follow. That's good stuff. Yeah, I like that stuff.
Yeah, but he was good though. So
sorry.
Devils fans should be pumped about that. There's a nice first game for him.
Well, I'll throw the cold water here and say if Devils fans are pumped about an OT win over a team that just raised the white flag themselves by selling off the best defenseman in Rasmus Anderson and playing their backup goalie. I know the Devils absolutely had to have those 2 points, and it's good that they did. And it was good to see Simon Nemec, who was, had that hot run a couple months ago of scoring big goals, especially in overtime, scores the OT winner in a game that could have been another frustrating one for them. So good on them.
What a play by Brat too, though, an OT to kick that puck loose.
Yeah.
What a play!
Yeah.
I mean, him and Jack with the backhand, the backhand touch over him. And Arthur, I'll get it right back to you because I'll listen. I have strong takes that people don't agree with and whatever. I've been pretty hard on Simon Nemec. He's still been clutch all season long, man. He's been, where would this team be without him, especially in overtime and his offensive bump? So I want to give him credit for that because I don't always do that, but I want to make sure I do here. That was big time. That was a big time goal there.
Yeah, and obviously kind of comparing it with the other news from the game, which was Luke Hughes going out with what looked like another shoulder injury, maybe a shoulder dislocation, just judging on how he reacted to kind of a what looked like a harmless little play. I mean, first off, you got to feel for him. You got to feel for the Devils. This is, he was out, he missed the first 11 games last season and needed surgery less than a year ago. And just, you see that. And obviously the similar injuries that Jack has had, incredibly frustrating. Even if things were going great right now, you just kind of say like, oh, come on. Like, I can't believe it again with one of these boys that something happens where to derail even a bad season. It just, Sheldon Keefe, I think, said today in Edmonton, they still got to wait and see more. That doesn't sound very good. And if he's out long-term, I don't know that you throw in the towel. You're not going to, there's no letters coming out of Newark on this one, but I feel like, it's just based on seeing some people on social media, whether it's media or whoever, bloggers, fans talking about like, oh, now we should keep Dougie Hamilton because if Luke is out, we need a top 4 guy, which in the short term is a totally normal reaction. To me, doesn't change anything. If you can get out from under Dougie's contract, and that is the point of scratching him and trying to trade him, it's not a knock on his play. He's played great since it happened. You got to get out from under that contract. 100%. That is the only consideration for me. So it sucks that Luke is out, especially if he's gone for the year. But this is a team that's sitting in 13th right now, 5 points out of the playoffs. Things weren't going that great when everybody was here. So yeah, I disagree with that sort of prevailing sentiment that you got to make the move for Dougie. If you can move Andre Palat before the deadline, you do that. Maybe this is a chance to kind of move some pieces that you might not have thought of moving otherwise if Luke is out for a while. But beyond that, the whole point is to free up cap space to make some major changes. And I think that's still the priority.
You stayed the course with that 100%. That's bang on, Arthur. Dougie's been great, and you just said it. And what a feed. What a play on the Mercer goal. Like Dougie's feeling it right now. And when you go blue line in the offensive zone, he's their best. He's their best guy right now, and on the D side. So he's been fantastic, and that only helps moving them. But if you have an opportunity to move them, you still do that right now, no matter what the circumstances are with Luke, because you never know. Like you gotta strike while the iron's hot. You might get into the summertime, and all of a sudden maybe something comes to fall in your lap, and you can't move because you still got this under contract and on the cap. So yeah, I agree with that. It'll be challenging if they get to the point where, like, say, Luke is out long term, and then you trade Dougie. But it is what it is. Like you got to get some cap space here if you want to make this team better.
But with that too, like if you are a Devils fan, do you still really think they're making noise in the playoffs right now? Like if they get in, like I guess there still is a lot of hockey to be played. Where I guess 50 games in, there's 30 plus games left. However you want to do it math wise, but like I I can't believe there are fans saying that they want to hang on to Dougie. Like I'm finding that so surprising. I didn't even know that was a thing. Arthur, you had some? You had some?
No, I'm just, it. Yeah, it is a surprise. I mean, I sort of feel like, the decision that it came down to when they were trying to move Dougie was obviously you've got to move money out, whether it was for Quinn Hughes and that didn't come to fruition, or whoever else that you wanted to bring in when things were still looking okay a month or so ago. And you need to see what you have in Simon Nemec. He's been super clutch. I mean, 8 goals in kind of the limited minutes that he's gotten most of the year, other than the time when they were missing Hamilton and Pesci and Kovacevic, and he was playing 25 minutes a night. And he played okay then. But I think you need to see what you have in this kid. He's coming up on a second contract. He obviously can score. The defensive side away from the puck is still a little bit of a struggle, but I think, I don't want to compare them to the Rangers, but for the Rangers, whatever they've got, you were saying, Johnny, like if you trade Panarin, what's left? Or if you trade Mika, what's left? Like what's left is some young guys that got to show they belong in the NHL or that they belong on the Rangers. I think it's the same for the Devils. If you're Simon Nemec and Luke is out and they trade Dougie, you don't say, oh shit, like what do we got left? You say, this is my time. I got to show that I'm worth whatever I'm going to be asking for in my next contract, or whatever I want to see myself on a third contract after a bridge deal. They have to be able to kind of assess this. It's Tom Fitzgerald's job is on the line. Maybe Sheldon Keefe's job is on the line when the season is over if it doesn't work out. And obviously there's, the injuries you can cite. And if this is a big one to Luke, then it's another injury you can cite as examples that we weren't at our best. But also, if you're going to change up some fundamental things, some core things about this team, you need to see what you have in your few young guys. And for me, that's, it's more of an opportunity than anything else for a guy like Nemec. So I would welcome it if I was the team and I was him, and just play free, see what you got, play your 20 minutes a night, your 22 minutes a night, move up the lineup and hope it works out. But, I just feel like, we always have this push pull among some of the fans who say like, oh, we want them to lose, or we want them to get a high draft pick, or we want to see what let them play, let the kids play. Like, okay, this is, we usually hear the other half chime in with the, like, don't trade Dougie now that Luke might be out. But it's, I just feel like you got to seize this opportunity if you're Nemec, if it comes to fruition, and not worry about the short term and winning games right now. This is more about long-term stuff.
Well, yeah. And I'm trying to find the right way to phrase this too. Like you mentioned, like it is kind of similar to the Rangers, I guess, in a sense, but I look at the forwards and they're so different. The Rangers' best are all north of 30. The Devils' best forwards are all under 30 and not even like really necessarily in their prime years yet. I think Nico and Jesper Bratt are both 27. Jack's 24. Timo Meier is probably the one who's like in that age. I think he's like 28 or 29. And then in the back end, you got Luke and Nemec, who are like two quote unquote offensive defensemen that are 22 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like the Devils' problems are similar, but also so opposite, right? Like I guess they're still having to, like, the younger guys like Luke and Nemec have to like prove that they're, I guess, consistent in the NHL. They've proven they're NHL players. Where, and like why I say this year, it's because the Devils have so many years left, where the Rangers don't have that. They have no time, but it feels like the Devils have so much time with this core. And that's kind of what I've been saying. I feel like since the first episode of the show with the Devils, it's like, do they really feel like this year has to be an all-in year when they have a window that, it opened a while ago because of that first round win against the Rangers, but it's still just now really opening.
I mean, the one thing you can say, and I'll flip it to you, Rupper, is that they don't have the goaltending to go beyond a couple of years. Their goalies are older. In a couple of years, Mikhail Yegorov, if he is what he's seen to be so far, personality and playing wise, then they're going to open up an entirely new window with some of those guys you're talking about, late 20s. And then you've got this young goalie you hope will come through. I mean, he's still only 19 or 20 years old, so it's still a ways away for him. But I'd say that's the only drawback to your theory, is that they don't really have the goaltending depth or age-wise to kind of age gracefully into a situation where when these guys really hit their prime, especially their defensemen, that the goaltending will be able to keep up.
Mm-hmm. Rupper?
Yeah, no, they
it's tough. Kind of going back and forth there.
No. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think that the frustrating thing is like it feels like you have time until you don't. In the last couple seasons, I think that's where fans get really frustrated, is that it felt like the team is ready to take steps, and then you had the injuries that happened, and it just seems like the same story all over again. And a lot of those things you can't control. Like, I'm not putting this on anybody in particular. I'm just saying, like, you've had decimating injuries every single year. And depending on what this is with Luke, like, this could be one that could shake you pretty good too. So, I don't know. You're right. They are in a different window than obviously the Rangers. They're doing like a retool, whatever you want to call it. But they are a team that it can get away with you real quick. So I think that's the frustrating part.
Mm-hmm. We have a Devils voicemail.
Should we start calling it the double retool with the Rangers? Not just because it feels like it needs a special the retool of the retool squared.
I mean, I don't know what to call it. I don't know. We'll brainstorm that one, but we do have a Devils voicemail. We should play that one if we can, Vic, please.
Hey, what's up, fellas? It's Kyle out from Long Island. Islanders fan, but I got a Devils question. What does the future look like for a guy like Seamus Casey, where he's a right-handed defenseman? He's doing all right in the AHL. He's not blowing anybody away. He had a little lightning in a bottle in the NHL, 8 points in 16 games, I think. But what does his future look like? The Devils have an obvious logjam of right-handed defensemen, and he's only 22. Do they just let him mature and grow in the AHL, or is he an expendable prospect where you could see that he might be a return piece for some sort of package that they're acquiring? Or could you picture them sending him off for a couple more prospects, maybe an NHL level guy? Thanks.
I think he's a shoppable guy. Like we said, or like Kyle said, the Devils are logjam on the right side. Like, do you need Seamus Casey to quarterback your first power play right now? Probably not, right? Like, if he's not crowd lineup, I don't see him running a first unit, but other organizations could use a right-handed shot that could run a first power play, and could use a guy, especially with the skill set he has. I mean, Seamus Casey, I think I've watched him play in college. He only played that handful of NHL games. Like, he was one of the most skilled defensemen in all of college hockey a couple of years ago to play in the AHL. But I would think that there are plenty of organizations out there that could use a guy with his skill set. But again, like, you have to keep in mind too, he's, 5'10", probably 175, 180 pound defenseman. And the Devils have a couple of those already. Like, they have the smaller skilled defenseman. So another one. So maybe he is a piece in a trade.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was thinking maybe this isn't a great comp because Devil fans probably won't want to hear it, but I get kind of Nils Lundqvist vibes.
Yeah, I see that.
Lundqvist was like, he was a player when he first came to the Rangers. Like, you were like, he'll be running this power play someday. Problem was they had Adam Fox, and you're never going to run the power play over Foxy because Adam Fox is Adam Fox. So he kind of got like lost in between. And then you see him, he goes to Dallas. He still wasn't playing consistently, even dating the last season. And so it's like, he's had a hard time establishing himself of what he is in the NHL, or, I don't want to say it that way, but like, or even to the degree, like he's had, got him right here, 205 games played. Like, I don't know if he's a full-time NHLer from here on out. And I feel like that's what Seamus Casey kind of is. It's like really good talent. We saw that right at the beginning of the season last year, but it's hard, man. Like, and it's hard because what he doesn't have in his favor is the size, and that if there's ever a time to come up with being 5'11", it's now. It's now. We see guys all the time, but it's also on a team that has quite a bit of undersized players. I think it makes him expendable, but there's no guarantee. Like when the caller said you trade him for a couple prospects, but like, yeah, I don't know if there's that much of a draw that you're going to be getting in return for him right now. He still has to prove himself at the National Hockey League level. Not getting the looks obviously right now, but I don't watch him at the American League. But you gotta take steps there before you can get to the NHL. So yeah, I don't know what to make of him. He's got a lot of talent, but it just feels like one of those players that's like a bubble guy that just needs an opportunity somewhere. And if he's in that right opportunity, right place, and takes advantage, then he could take off from there.
Arthur?
What Rupper said, 100%.
All right. Should we shift gears? We don't have a lot of time. I know we're running short on time here today. We can talk Islanders. Arthur, I think you want to kick this one off with the Duclair stuff.
Well, it was great to see. I mean, 2 goals last night. What is it? 7 goals now in 7 games, and not a ton since the big 5-point explosion against the Devils. But it's a lot for a team that doesn't score. And he said after the game last night to the reporters in Vancouver that he's been using Casey Cizik as his stick since his explosion started 2 weeks ago. And I think that's fantastic and hilarious. And just, hearing Duke say, yeah, I threw my stick in the garbage, picked his up at a practice, liked the feel, liked the weight, liked the curve, boom. And now, you see him in his second goal on the power play last night. We had Cal Ritchie with the beaver tail on Matthew Barzal to get the puck to Duke for the lone goal in Edmonton. This was Duclair banging a stick on the ice in the bumper to get Ritchie to give it to him, and he snapped it. He was 15 feet out, and he just snapped it right over Kevin Lankinen. It was a beautiful shot. Tied the game. He had the 2 first goals of the game for the Islanders. They played like crap, really, just to be fully honest. They were not good last night. They gave up 6 high-danger chances in the first period to a team that's dead in the water in Vancouver. And they were really chasing it for a little bit of that game. And then they, got a couple of goals in the second period. A big one from Tony DeAngelo in the third. Yeah, here's the one from Duclair where he's, give it to me. And he certainly did what you want to do with it when you call for the puck. So I love that, and I don't love the way the Islanders played, but 3-2-1 on this road trip. They can end up 4-2-1 if they win tomorrow in Seattle, which is incredible considering maybe they played 3 good periods in this entire road trip. So I guess we're not diving in too deep on what the Islanders are doing right now, but I wanted to ask you two guys as veteran hockey players, since my career ended as a youth hockey player before I could ever have my own signature stick or anything. Do you ever remember yourselves or anybody else just like tossing a stick in the garbage and saying like, just grabbing one off the rack and saying like, yeah, this looks good, and going out and doing something good with it? Because seems pretty hilarious to me.
Rupper, you'd be better than me in this category.
I think it's refreshing that he does that, because I don't think many guys would be able to just do that, right? You play with some guys who would try different sticks and were stick kind of junkies, would go to stick rack and look at everybody's twig and use them in practice. But I find that I was not obviously a consistent goal scorer, but all goal scorers need. And Anthony Duclair, he's a goal scorer. Like I know he's had some long stretches of not scoring goals, but like when he's at his best, he's firing the puck and he's scoring goals, and that's what gives him his confidence in his game. When they don't have that confidence, they just need something. And sometimes in these situations, I can't think of one player in particular, but like I've seen guys make drastic changes to their sticks.
I think Ovi and McDavid in recent years, right?
Yeah. And when you make the drastic change and something like that, you're looking for just some kind of confidence, and maybe it's just that, like the first game using it 5 points, like yeah, you know what I mean. Like doesn't usually work out, I think, that way. But it just gives you like I always kind of touch on it. It's so funny, like the psyche of players in the league, and this goes all the way through your lineup, because I was like this as a role playing guy. I can go 20 games without a goal. If I score in game 21, I am on cloud 9. Not because it was done and I snapped it. It's like I'm so confident, and then like in practice, I'm shooting the puck more confident. Like you can turn it on a dime. So you're looking for something. But I'm pretty impressed that he literally abandoned the stick. It wasn't like tweaking his blade. There could be a different lie, it could be a different flex, could be different, all these different things. So, but it's crazy when you just get something to go your way, how you can just flush out everything and move forward in a different manner. And they could use some doing that. Like if Anthony Duclair is Anthony Duclair, this team is, we talked about it before, you need certain games from certain players to take you over the hump. And he's a guy that could do that for them.
And it's details, and it's so funny. I'll actually, like, if you've never played hockey, you wouldn't really understand like how different everything feels. I got into like not an argument, but like a conversation with my girlfriend recently because we went ice skating, and I said I always bring my own skates when I go ice skating. She's like, why? Like, you play hockey, like you can just wear the rentals. And I'm like, no, I can't skate in those. Like, I just can't. I can't do it. Like, my edges are all fucked up. Like, they don't sharpen them. Like, I need my own skates if we're going ice skating. That's just how I am. And it was so hard to explain to someone it's not like you're just putting on bowling shoes, right? Like, these are so custom to the person. And that's how sticks go too. And recently, like I went to Princeton a month ago and like did some content with the Princeton guys, and one of their players, Facinelli, gave me like his stick, and he had a knob taped with lizard skin. So like the grip, it feels like it's glued to your hand. And I was like, holy shit, I feel like my shot was 10 times harder just because the grip I had on the knob was so
nice.
much.
How nice is
better.
that lizard
grip?
skin?
Yeah, it's amazing. And now, I'm sitting here ordering like 10 rolls of the lizard skin tape. Like, it's
Yeah.
I wish I had that when I was playing. Like, it's crazy. The little minor details, even the way you tape the blade of your stick, the way you feel the puck, the way you pass, the way you stick handle. Like, when I just tape the knob of my stick with normal tape, I feel like I can't even hold the stick. So it is wild, just how a minor detail like this can make Duclair feel that much better. It's true though. It's very true.
And this is kind of the other end of the spectrum too, because again, like, so if I'm talking about my stick, I used to always get made fun of because I use a very straight stick. And but you talk
With
to
the
guys
blade, you mean?
Yeah, the blade was very straight, and you could talk to guys that play with me, and like I had probably a better backhand than forehand. My backhand was awesome. Like in my backhand passes, like I could go crisp, hard backhand receiving passes. But think of like my stick was literally designed for the things in my game: receiving passes, digging in the corners, putting your stick. I had a very flat toe, so I could pin it up against the wall for rims, getting the puck out of the zone. But it was like we joke around about a hamburger like a spatula,
A flipper.
basically.
A flipper, yeah.
Flipper, thank you. Yeah. But like I had touch with my stick on, this sounds ridiculous, but this was my game on dump-ins. Like I could do like a nice little baby flip over to the defenseman's head right behind him, and then I just go in there and hit him and get the puck back. So all those things, to the degree where I got done playing, and I got probably, I'd say 24 sticks when I retired. Like in Minnesota, they had 24 sticks there. The trainer was awesome. He sent me home with all of them, and I use them still to today. I have them around the house in certain locations where I use my hockey stick as like a tool around the house. I'm so like it's just it's part of me. Like for an example, I got like you get those Ring cameras. Sometimes I got to flip the batteries out of them. I go outside and I stick my stick up and flick it off, and I catch it, and then I flip the wood. I have one kept outside. I get buddies over.
Sounds like a great commercial.
Yeah, and the bonfire. I flip the logs in the bonfire, and they're like, "Well, you're flipping. You got like a $300 stick in the fire," and I'm like, "I got like a bunch of them. It's fine." Like, but you know what I mean? Like, you get so used to your stick that I use it for fucking everything. So that's why to me, you've got that one end of the spectrum. I would never change anything on my stick, and then you've got the refreshing way of Anthony Duclair. He's going to flip it. He's going to have success here. He's going to have some fun with it, and hopefully, it lifts his confidence level.
So Arthur, I wanted to bring up one more thing. Are we good on time, guys? By the way, like, what are we looking at time wise here? How much longer we got? We can cut this part out.
No, we're good. I got a couple minutes.
Yeah. Couple more minutes. Yeah, let's go.
One thing and again, like last night, all three teams were playing at the same exact time, so it was hard to really watch all three in detail. I was kind of just like flipping back and forth between Rangers, Ducks, Islanders, Canucks, and Devils, Flames. But one thing I noticed, at least from Islanders fans, the last couple of games, and as far as like the Twitter aspect of it goes, fans seem to be very hard on Jonathan Drouin lately and very hard on Sipakov lately. So, Arthur, if you can clear up what's going on with those two guys. I think I saw a take like Jonathan Drouin might never score a goal again. Like, what the hell is going on with Drouin and Sipakov?
I mean, Sipakov, he struggled last night. He had a bad turnover that led to the second Vancouver goal. He didn't play a lot in the second and third period. I think he ended up with less than 7 minutes. It's a guy who's been in Patrick Waugh's doghouse since training camp. Hasn't played a ton. When he does get in, he's exclusively on the fourth line. I think last night he started up in the lineup with Shabanov out. I think he was more second or third line. And I just, the confidence is shot for him. I think, he had such a seamless transition from the KHL last year when he came over, where he was doing a lot of stuff. I think when we first saw him, this is a guy who exploded for whatever it was. I think it was 30 goals his last year in the KHL after being like a 10, 12 goal guy. And so we thought, okay, power forward, he's going to stand in front of the net, kind of an Anders Lee, Kyle Palmieri type. In his first couple of games last season, this guy was making great passes, kind of curling, good possession, zone entries, curling, looking for the trailer, a really good playmaker. But I think there were some other spots in his game that Patrick Waugh didn't love. And I think the addition of Shabanov, his countryman, and a couple other people, he's kind of got bumped down and just the confidence is shot. So I'm curious to see if that can be rebuilt at all this season and see if he can build back up. Waugh did say after the game that that's on him. He needs to let him play a little bit more. So he's supposedly going to play again tomorrow in Seattle. We'll see if that helps. And as far as Drouin goes, I understand fans are upset. He's only got 3 goals and he seems, other guys have been shifted around higher in the lineup, lower in the lineup. Some have been scratched. He's been very consistent. I think Raw is a big fan of his. And I think with Jonathan Drouin, you know what you're getting. This is the guy, this is who he is. He is a guy who is a pretty good complementary player on a good team. Obviously, his numbers were a little inflated playing with the guys in Colorado the last couple of years. And I think, he started his career in Tampa and Montreal. I think he's sort of, he's been in the league long enough. This is a guy who's a pass-first guy. He doesn't shoot a ton. He doesn't have an incredible skill as far as shooting. So, I think it's more of an indictment on where the goals are coming from the Islanders, where you've got Horvat out, you've got Palmieri out for the season. And obviously, they have a lot of like 10 to 14 goal guys so far as we're hitting game 50. So you'd want to see him be up there with those guys. But I think he's, he is what he is. And when they signed him, you thought, okay, if things go really well, this is a good complimentary signing, whether he plays with Horvat or maybe he plays with Barzal and kind of forces Barzal to be more of an attacking guy. It's a team that struggles to score. They're struggling to score a lot more with Horvat out. Drouin is not a guy who can just grip it and rip it. And he's not going to be a 20 to 30 goal guy. He's a 15 goal guy at best. He's more of a distributor. He's going to be that on the power play. Maybe Patrick Waugh could shift him around a little bit more and give some more to some other guys. Maybe now with Duclair on a bit of a heater, that maybe that can be a guy who kind of supplements him in the top 6. But, I don't have a huge problem with Drouin because I think you watch him play over the years, you know what he is. And he's doing that exact thing for the Islanders. The problem is that the other guys that they need to be scoring goals aren't doing that.
Well, also, wasn't he signed just to be a filler guy until, Cole Eiserman comes up? Like we with the Islanders' success, we've lost the perspective on things,
Yeah, I don't know. I think Drouin was, if this team, I mean, like you said, Arthur, they haven't not been playing very well on the trip, but they find ways to get points. If they can keep this thing going and get back to playing better hockey when they get home, they look like that team we talked about last episode that should probably be looking around. I'm sure they are. It may be some options here. And I think if you bring in a terms player with, we mentioned a Jordan Kyrou, whether that's something that could work or not. If you can get a player like that that's under contract, I think the best Islander lineup is probably with Drouin out. If you get a guy like that, like he's probably the odd man out because he has to play in certain spots in your lineup. And I think he's an awesome player that can fill in the gaps here and there. Like I almost think of him as like Dodonov for like the Devils. Like you see him you could pop him in one night and he's awesome. But I don't know if he's the guy that's going to ride and die with Jack and Jesper for 82 games. Like that's not who he is at this point. Drouin's kind of the same thing. He could fill in admirably at times, but he's not probably the guy you want to go into playoffs playing a top 6 role. Can I vent about one thing? I was flipping back and forth. I caught a little bit of both the other games. I was more or less watching the Devils Flames game. I was losing my mind. The 5-on-3 the Islanders had. You had Marcus Pettersson breaks his stick, and I'm sitting on the couch, like I'm lounging, I'm laying back. I'm like, I'm laying there just talking like I would, like, I mean, I actually sometimes on the bench because I haven't played in a while, I'd be laying down, but I was just acting like I was playing again. I was just like laying on the couch. I'm like, it's broken stick. I'm like, broken stick. And I start sitting up. I'm like, broken stick. Why are we not taking advantage of the guy with the broken stick? And they're going the other side of the ice. I'm like, oh, for sure they're trying to get it back to Heineman for the one-timer. He got one shot opportunity. They went a long stretch. I'm like, what are we doing? Attack Marcus Pettersson. It's a 5-on-2.5 right now. And I'm like, it's just driving me bananas that with all that talent on the ice, they couldn't take advantage of that. And they obviously end up not scoring on that. But it's like shit like that drives me nuts. I'm assuming the bench is all screaming. Everybody knows on the ice, but they're not taking advantage. Like, you have to attack the guy that does not have a stick. You could pass the puck 3 inches from his skates. He is
as many
not gonna
times
be
you
able to
want.
break up a play. You can attack right at him. He's gonna, if anything, all he's gonna be able to do is grab you and take another penalty because he's got to hold you. So that part, man, I flipped over. I did watch that for a few seconds. I'm like, Jesus, I got to get back to the Devils game.
That's actually such a good hockey conversation too, and maybe a 5-on-3 is a different story. But nothing like grinds my gears more watching a hockey game when either a 5-on-5 or 5-on-4. 5-on-3 again, like this is such a unique situation. But if you are in the period of the normal change, long change, we'll excuse it, and you break a stick in the D zone, I hate when a player just defends for 20 plus seconds without a stick. It takes 6-7 seconds to go to the bench and grab a stick and get back in the D zone and just play with a stick. I hate it so much when a player that's defending just doesn't go to the bench and grab one, and you're caught for 30 to 45 seconds in your own zone without a stick. Like I really wish, like, if I would harp on that all the time. If you break a stick in the Z zone, go to the bench and grab one. I don't care if you're out of the play for 6 or 7 seconds.
Well,
like,
I mean,
I'd rather you.
It's such an easy transfer too, because like, let's say worst case scenario, it's a defenseman that breaks it, and we always know you're talking first period, third period, so you're close to the bench. And you've got the D side of the bench inside the zone or right at the blue line. So if a D breaks the stick, everybody knows it's hockey
Forward,
101. Forward, go give the D the stick. Now, if you're the center that gives them the stick, you got it. The winger's got to recognize, get a switch. The winger that's closest to the bench switch with the center to get the guy with no stick out there. And then as soon as the puck was on one side of the ice, you could literally you could almost reach and grab it, and you can get back in. And you got to just be aware. Everyone's got to sink back a little bit because your defenseman's going to see that and he's going to fucking run right to the slot. But it's such an easy thing to navigate through, but sometimes you watch it and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? You'd rather play the next 45 seconds with no stick. You can't get any possession. You can't kill the play. Now you're vulnerable. The other team making a line change, and you're going to be susceptible for a goal against.
And it kills the other 4 guys on the ice. Now they're stuck. It's something I never thought about as a player, but as I've now like watched overhead, I'm like, just go to the fucking bench and grab. Like, it pisses me off every time I see somebody defending without a stick for an extended period of time. Sorry, I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Well, no, it felt good to get mine out too. So it felt good.
Arthur, you got anything you want to clear up a little bit before we wrap up?
I'm fine for now, really. No? I'm okay.
Any thoughts here before we wrap up today's show? We will be back on Friday, and as always, our Friday shows are a little bit earlier released wise in the day. I know the Monday or Tuesdays are a little bit later sometimes in the day because we're recording at like 2:30 Eastern. So any final thoughts?
Nope. All good.
All right. As always, we are presented by Novig. If you're betting on Novig, you play against other real users, not the house, and it's the only commission-free exchange, so you keep every dollar you win. You'll get better odds than traditional sportsbooks, meaning you're 10 times more likely to win in the long run. Choose the best odds or offer your own. Trade Novig coins for fun or Novig cash to win real prizes. Sign up with code DailyFaceoff in all caps. You get $50 in Novig coins when you spend $5. Just available in most states. Must be 21 or older to play with no purchase necessary. We love you guys. Thanks to the callers. Thanks to our producer, Vic, and we will see you on Friday. Hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see some more Tri-State hockey content, don't forget to leave a like and comment on the video below, and also subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel.